On course to become Disney's worst performing live action remake. It opened in theaters with $43 million at...
The reason I think a lot of people aren't going to see it is because she hates 2/3 of this country, or 60% of this country.
Why have you not seen any advertising for Disney's new Snow White film if you compare it to other live-action princess films?
Because a clip of the Whistle While You Work song that is featured in Snow White has been released and compared to the 1937 version.
I got another example of it. Now, this person is not a politician and she's not a newscaster, but she's pretty famous and she's been in the news.
Once upon a time, Disney was the undisputed titan of family-friendly entertainment, a company that ruled over the hearts of children and adults alike. Its iconic princesses, enchanting fairy tales, and magical worlds set the standard for storytelling that generations grew up loving. But in the ever-changing world of Hollywood, even the most legendary corporations can find themselves at the center of controversies, with their magic dimming and their fairy tales turning into nightmares. The latest chapter in this saga involves a film that was supposed to be Disney's crown jewel, the live-action remake of Snow White. At the helm of this disastrous journey is none other than Disney's CEO, Bob Iger, a man who once personified the success of the company, turning it into an empire that seemed invincible. But now, as the backlash against Snow White continues to grow, Iger is scrambling to save the brand from collapsing under the weight of controversy and failure. How did things go so wrong? Let's break it down, as Disney's fairy tale is turning into a cautionary tale for the ages. It all began with high hopes. Snow White, one of Disney's most beloved animated classics, was set to be reimagined for a new generation. The live-action remake was supposed to bring the magic of the original film to life, with stunning visuals, an all-star cast, and a fresh take on a timeless story. However, things started to unravel long before the film even hit theaters. The first cracks in the fairy tale appeared when Rachel Zegler, the actress cast as Snow White, began making controversial statements that would spark an avalanche of backlash. Zegler
And as posted as such, everyone seems to be throwing in the face of, YouTubers saying like,
For bad things over the past couple of years as far as the right half of the country is concerned. Her name is Rachel Zegler.
Zegler's public criticism of the original Snow White film was only the beginning. She took aim at the beloved animated classic, dismissing its portrayal of the princess and its outdated gender roles. While some might have expected this kind of rhetoric from a new iteration of a fairy tale, Zegler didn't stop there. She publicly declared that the film's portrayal of Snow White as a damsel in distress was a problem, and she was determined that her Snow White would not need a prince to rescue her. This was an attempt to modernize the character, but it felt more like an attack on the very essence of what made Snow White an iconic character in the first place. But Zegler didn't just target the movie. She took her grievances into the realm of politics. Her outspoken political views began to alienate a significant portion of her audience. Zegler's comments about the 2024 presidential election, in which she made it clear that she despised Trump and his supporters, were inflammatory to say the least. In one now infamous Instagram post, she declared that she hoped Trump supporters would never find peace. This kind of rhetoric, which could be described as divisive at best and hateful at worst, immediately set off a firestorm of criticism. Fans who were already on the fence about the film found themselves repulsed by Zegler's words and vowed to boycott the movie. The response from Disney was telling. The company, always careful about maintaining its image, initially tried to distance itself from the controversy. Bob Iger, who had already been facing criticism for the company's performance in other areas, notably streaming and theme parks, seemed reluctant to address the growing crisis surrounding Snow White. As the film's release approached, Iger dodged questions about the controversy and remained silent on the issue. But as the backlash intensified, the damage became impossible to ignore. When Snow White finally hit theaters, the results were catastrophic. The film earned just $86.1 million globally on its opening weekend, a far cry from the $370 million Disney had spent on production and marketing. It was a financial disaster that no one saw coming, and it became clear that the film's failure could not be attributed solely to poor timing or bad luck. Zegler's inflammatory statements, combined with Disney's failure to properly address the controversy, had cost the company millions. It wasn't just a flop, it was a complete collapse. Behind the scenes, the fallout from the film's performance was swift and severe. Analysts began pointing to the cracks in Disney's business model. While the company had seen some success with its streaming services and theme park revenue, the Snow White debacle cast a shadow over everything else. The movie's poor performance, coupled with the growing public outcry, sent shockwaves through the company. Iger's refusal to address the issue head-on only made matters worse. The silence from Disney regarding the film was deafening. No mention of Snow White was made during Iger's Q4 earnings call, and analysts noticed the glaring absence. It seemed as though the company was doing everything it could to pretend the film didn't exist. As the weeks went by, Disney continued to try to steer attention away from the disaster. The focus shifted to Hulu, ESPN, and even the cruise line business, with little mention of the film that had become a corporate embarrassment. But the damage was done. Disney's brand, once synonymous with wholesome entertainment, was now synonymous with controversy. And Rachel Zegler, the star who is supposed to carry the torch for Disney's next generation of princesses, was at the center of it all. It wasn't just fans who were upset. Zegler's words had alienated celebrities and political commentators alike. The actress found herself under fire from all sides, with some calling for her to be removed from future projects. Megyn Kelly, a prominent political commentator, slammed Zegler's statements and criticized Disney for allowing the actress to continue promoting their brand. Kelly pointed out the hypocrisy of Disney's actions, noting how other stars like Gina Carano were fired for far less controversial statements. Zegler's political outbursts were not just an annoyance, they were a direct threat to the company's bottom line. But even as the backlash grew louder, Zegler showed no signs of backing down. Her refusal to apologize sincerely for her comments only...
Zegler, I don't know, Ziegler. Okay, there's something wrong with this person. She's also known as the star of Snow White. I guess, what are we going to have? Like a lesbian, a trans person, someone in a wheelchair, someone of color? Like they got
added fuel to the fire. She may have issued a half-hearted apology, but it was clear that she didn't understand the full extent of the damage she had caused. The actress seemed more focused on defending her right to express her views than on recognizing the impact her words had on Disney's brand and the fans who had once supported her. Meanwhile, Disney found itself in a precarious position. The company had spent hundreds of millions on a film that was now destined to go down as one of the biggest flops in recent memory. Theaters were seeing empty seats, social media was flooded with calls for boycotts, and Disney's once vibrant image was now tarnished. As Iger continued to avoid addressing the crisis, the company's leadership seemed to be in full retreat. It was clear that Disney was in survival mode, hoping that the storm would pass and that the damage could be contained. But with the release of Snow White now a distant memory and the backlash only growing stronger, the question on everyone's mind is whether Disney can recover. Bob Iger, who once steered the company to unprecedented heights, is now facing a crisis unlike any he's ever seen. Will he be able to steer Disney back on course? Or is this the beginning of the end for the once untouchable brand? As for Rachel Zegler, her future with Disney is uncertain. The actress, who is supposed to be the face of a new era for Disney, now finds herself at the center of a corporate disaster. Her political views and controversial statements have left her with few allies and even fewer opportunities. Whether or not she'll be able to recover from this scandal remains to be seen, but one thing is certain. The damage she has caused to Disney is undeniable. The fairy tale of Snow White has turned into a nightmare for Disney, and the future of the brand is now in question. What was supposed to be a magical reinvention of a classic story has instead become a cautionary tale about the dangers of mixing politics with entertainment. As the company continues to try to pick up the pieces, one can only wonder if this will be the end of an era for Disney, or if they can somehow manage to regain their place at the top of the entertainment world.